All right. Welcome to LDCC Sports Zone. Um, just quick disclaimer: we were not hired by any committee members or um, any captains, coaches to recap any of this. This is all just our own opinions on some of the different LDCC sports that have been going on. So we just wanted to make that clear that this is all just our opinion. It's not coming from any commissioner, any committee member, nobody like that. But what we'll try to do is we'll try to recap some of the main things that have been happening in the past week or two, and um, we'll try to keep you guys updated there, and then we'll kind of go into some discussions and things also. So, with that being said, today with some of the softball leagues just ending, I know a couple of them are just going to be starting also, but we'll be talking about the ones that have been going on and the ones that just ended mainly. So, um, yeah, you have the
Yeah. All right. So today, I got some of the T-ball stuff from Heather. So if any of you guys are interested on how the game scores or and went, then you can contact her. Uh, Looks like in girls T-ball, then the top team right now is Crystal Young with 7 wins and 1 loss. Congratulations to them. Girls minor league standings looks like Tansy O'Brien's team is ranked 1 right now with 6 wins and 1 loss. Congratulations to them as well. And I don't know when they're starting playoffs. You'd have to check. But for boys T-ball, then uh, looks like James O is in James O'Brien. His team is ranked 1 with 6 wins and 1 loss. Congratulations to them. Boys minor league, then Sean Freeman's team is ranked 1, and they have 5 wins and 1 loss. And I believe they'll be starting playoffs here pretty quick within the next couple of weeks. So shout out to them, and good luck in playoffs, you guys.
all right. So now we can get into. So we know that the A League and the B League men's leagues just barely finished up. Congratulations to James Owen's team for winning the A League championship, and congratulations to David East's team for winning the B League championship. Today we are going to be covering a lot of what happened in the A League. We might cover some of the B League next video if we can figure everything out. We haven't. I mean, we played in A League while B League was playing, so we don't really know much about the B League.
Yeah, I was too busy trying to win a championship. Sorry, B leaguers.
Yeah, so maybe we'll figure that out. But um, so we're gonna start today with the MVP conversation for the A League, men's A League. So I'll let Jonah start. We'll see what he has to say about
So,
this.
and anyways, for the MVP, I'm sure a lot of you guys read our article that we made, and we feel pretty proud about that. But when you break everything down, then so David Young bat like 8.68 if I remember correctly. He had 11 home runs and I think it was like 40 RBIs. Actually, I have the stuff right here. He had 40 RBIs, and then Eldon batted 8.33, which is the difference of 3 outs between David and Eldon. And then Joe batted 804, which is the difference between him and David. I think is like 6 outs when I did the calculations. But when you break it down to who was actually more valuable, then they all played the same position in the outfield, and David was the most inefficient as far as on outfield. And I mean, people will say the ball didn't get hit to him. That's just what softball is. He didn't get that many outs, but they all played the same position. I think Joe statistically fielded the best, but Eldon had more home runs and Joe had more home runs. And when you hit a home run, then you get a certain amount of RBIs, and there's no chance of getting out. And so when David was up to hit, then he hasn't really cleaned the bases, is what I would say. So um, in the home runs and guarantee point in the games that my team, because Eldon was on my team, so I'm kind of biased, but the games that my team has won, then we've won, I think it's 3 or 4 games by less than 3 points. And Eldon hitting home runs has literally won us some games. So that's why I feel like the home runs have a lot of weight in this conversation when it's a difference between 3 runs between Eldon and David. And so if you take out 3 of Eldon's home runs and 3 of David's on bases, then Eldon clearly has better stats. So that's my take on it, I guess.
So you think Eldno deserves the MVP?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So with you made a comment about how David doesn't clean the bases.
yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that. He does have 40 RBIs compared to Eldon's 38, so I think he cleaned the bases pretty well. Um, the home runs are a big part of the game, obviously. It's, I mean, it's your best chance at clearing the bases. Um, so for me, I think the biggest thing. So David, he had a great average this year. Um, he had a lot of RBIs. I believe he was second in in RBIs this year. The home runs were a little low, as you mentioned. Eldon also with a great average and the highest home runs. His RBIs were a little low. Um, the biggest thing for me is, if I remember right, they give out a specific award for the batting average title, which is going to go to David. Um, the home run title, which will go to Eldon, and I believe they also do an RBI title, which will go to Joe. And so they were all super close in average. Eldon and Joe were super close in home runs. So the thing for me is you go to the RBIs at that point, and Joe completely dominated everybody. So I'm glad that we talked about cleaning up the bases because Joe did that better than anybody else this year. And I was going through some of the games. It looked to me like they all bat second in their lineup. So they're all batting the same um, position. I wouldn't necessarily say it's David's and Eldon's fault. Maybe Joe's team was just they had better batters at the bottom of their lineup. They were getting guys on for him, but I just can't ignore the 52 RBIs. I think he deserves the MVP. I think David and Eldon were great, and I think any of the three will deserve it, but I think it should go to Joe. But I know the conversation has mainly been about those three, but I do have a dark horse MVP that I think might be able to come in, and he probably deserves at least to be a finalist. I don't know who you'd kick out of the three we've already talked about, but I think Danny deserves some conversation for MVP also. He didn't bat in the 80s like the other three. He bat 750. Um, only 8 home runs. It's not far behind David, but his RBIs, he was leading David and Eldon with 41. So it's not by much. But the big thing for me, there's two things actually, and I know um, most leagues don't have their awards based off of playoff performance, and I agree with that because not everybody makes the playoffs. But some people might think um, that you should consider playoffs just because, you know, if you're playing on a team that wasn't good enough for playoffs, are you really that good? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But Danny's team won the championship. He was the best player on the best team. Um, and he plays the infield. And I know I'm probably going to ruffle a lot of feathers with this part, but he plays infield. Infield's harder than outfield. I'm sorry for all you outfielders.
I feel like that's common knowledge, but continue, continue.
Okay, so he plays the infield. No disrespect to the outfielders. I understand your job is hard also, but shortstop is the most important position on defense. That's what Danny plays. He got 53 outs this year. Um, that was good for fourth in the whole league. And the top outfielder had 38 outs this year. So Danny had 15 more outs than the top outfielder. So I do think Danny deserves to be bumped up into that discussion also. Like I said, I don't know who you drop out because the three we talked about before, they were all great this year. But I think Danny deserves to be in there also.
So I mean, breaking down the RBIs, and no, I don't want to slander anyone on my team, but me and Tyler and one other player on our team were at the bottom and we could never get on base. So Eldon couldn't really hit anybody home. And then the one guy ahead of him hit a lot of solos. I think he was number 3 on home runs for the year. So having said that, Eldon would have had more RBIs, and if he did, then we wouldn't even be talking about this. So that's just that's like a take that you think about, and you can think about also when outfielding, like how many how many balls has David, Eldon, or Joe dropped, or how many opportunities did Danny have to get people out in the infield when he didn't convert? Because I know he likes to throw that thing hard. Sometimes it may not be the most accurate, but there's a lot of different things that we don't keep track of stats on that you couldn't really you can make an excuse for everybody and make a case for anybody. And so everybody here deserves it, but because Eldon was on my team and those 18 home runs and he was second in average. And if me and some other players on our team could just get on base, then he would have the amount of RBIs, and it wouldn't be a question.
Yeah, I see. I can see where you're coming from. It it is unfortunate that he didn't have as many opportunities,
Yeah.
but I think that just because the gap is so big, I mean, you got 52 versus 40. So Joe had 12 more RBIs. That's like it's an RBI a game almost more, and some people might not think that's crazy,
Yeah.
but that the gap is just too big for me. So my pick would be Joe. Um, I would probably still say Eldon would take the second, but I think Joe deserves it. Um, but like you mentioned with the stats and things that we can't really keep track of or we don't keep track of, hopefully we do get around to keeping them eventually. But um, like you said, Danny, he probably did miss a lot of outs he could have had, but it's kind of more impressive in my opinion at that point that he was still able to get 53. I know infielders usually have more action. Outfielders, there's four of you out there and everybody hits to different spots, so you don't get all the opportunities. The same case could be made with an infielder though. That you can hit all around the infield too, and I understand most of the action does come to the shortstop, but 15 outs difference on the year, that's an out a game that Danny was getting more than any of the outfielders. And so just because he plays like MVP, most valuable player, it doesn't say best offensive player.
Yeah.
And I know we have individual awards for outfielder and infielder of the year, and we don't have like an offensive player of the year. But if we're talking about MVP, it's most valuable player. And while offense is very important in softball, I think the defense helps give Danny a case here just because it does make him a lot more valuable. If I needed an outfielder on my team, or if I needed an infielder and an outfielder, I'm going to pick the infielder higher just because everybody knows it's it's easier to come by an outfielder.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Uh, so, anyways, David, Eldon, Joe, and Danny, congratulations! You have been noticed for your performance this year. I don't know. I think only 3 people get to get nominated.
I think so.
Maybe 5, and in the past they've even done tie. They've done tie awards, so maybe if you get the same awards, 2 people can win it this year. Who knows?
Hopefully not. Ties are stupid.
uh, now that we've gone a little bit more into the MVP, we're going to talk about the rookies this year. So the people that come to mind when I think about it are, I mean, I look at the stats, and Brian Young and Ammon Kingston were tied, but Ammon made it into the top 10 because his name starts with an A, and Brian starts with a with a B.
You're talking about average, right?
Average batting average, yeah.
Okay.
So they're both tied, so they both made it into the top 10. Both play 2 totally separate positions. And then the other rookie I'm looking at is Brayson. He batted good. He played extremely well all year except for the last week. I don't think he would have been in the top 10, but he did not get on base last week, it sounds like.
Yeah, and
So
I do want to clarify something. I've heard a lot of people saying he bat 0 of 9 last week. I went back and checked. It was 0 of 7. So it wasn't quite as bad. But yeah, that performance did drop him out of the top 10 in batting average. I think had it not been for the last week, I don't remember for sure, but I think he would have ended somewhere in the maybe like 8 to 10 range in the league on batting average, which would have bumped Ammon and Brian both down. But we can't think about what ifs. I mean, it happened and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I do think our top three options are Ammon, Brayson, and Brian, just because of the batting. I think we mentioned Abel in the article. I know Abel was um, a pretty good outfielder. His average wasn't quite as high as some of the other ones, and so that's why he doesn't get uh, a spot from me. But yeah, he was still all right though.
yeah, um, looking at the rookies, it's you can like I said, they play different positions. Brayson played left field, Brian played first, and I believe Ammon played right center. And so looking at it, you can kind of just take the pick on who you thought would win it at this point. Like for me, I don't really have a exact like I'm set on this person like I was for the MVP. Looking at it, they all deserve it, and whoever wins it, then I don't think anyone will say they do not deserve it. They're gonna deserve it.
Yeah, and I think I I think I am set on the rookie of the year. I think it should go to Brayson. I know that he had the bad last week. I know his average isn't as high as Ammon's or Brian's, but I think what he does in the outfield is a lot more. I don't know. He impacts the game a lot more out in the outfield. So um, I know. So probably if I had to rank it, I would probably go Brayson at 1, Ammon at 2. He had the great average. He made an impact in the outfield. From what I could see, he was a solid outfielder. Brian, he had the average also, just like Ammon. I think he might have had a higher slugging percentage. I don't remember for sure, but um, I think it goes to Ammon just because of the defense. First base, I've never tried playing it. It's probably hard when you get some people thrown to you.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
shortstop, so I'm sure there's been first baseman who didn't really like me, but
Shout out to Danny.
yeah, yeah, Danny Connor, that some I don't know.
Almost like to rocket that ball.
Yeah, I've heard of some broken thumbs, so no disrespect to Brian for playing first, but I would go Brayson and then Ammon and then Brian for me. If Abel ends up in the conversation, that's fine with me too. He wasn't bad, but I think his average was just too far behind the rest for my consideration. Um, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you who I think should win, but I don't care. I'm not set on someone. Whoever wins, then good job. Good job.
All right, so I guess we can move on to the next portion then.
Yeah.
Um,
Should we go infielder or outfielder first?
we could start with outfielder
Because none of us are an outfielder.
because yeah, we're not outfielders.
So me personally, an outfielder of the year is somebody that when it gets hit to them, then they're gonna make some amazing catches throughout the year. They're gonna hustle, and when the ball gets hit to them, you're gonna take off your mitt, start walking to the dugout because you know they're gonna catch it. And for me, then there were a lot of drop balls this year, and so just looking on the stats, I'm just gonna pick whoever has the best stats. Like for me, then there was no outfielder that shined a lot, and it could be because the people that shine in the past keep shining or keep doing what they're supposed to, and it just gets overlooked because they've done it so many times. But I'm strictly just gonna vote based off of the stats in the article, and so based on that, I think Joe Lancaster was the top one on there, and he's always been really solid. He has an arm too. That's something you want in an outfielder. Brayson has an arm. I was kind of impressed with how far he was able to throw that thing sometimes to get some outs at second. And I don't have the stats pulled up with us, but I'll probably vote the next guy in line after that. What about you, Garrison?
So I think before we get into who I think, we probably should talk about the stats. I know some people have had complaints that the stats are not kept accurately, and I actually think that the committee and people who are in charge of the stats have done a really good job at trying to get the stats more accurate. I know they had a rule where the captains had to submit their lineup, but they also had to submit who was playing what position on defense. That way, everybody could get the correct defensive stats rewarded to them. And so I was really happy with that change that they made. Um, so I think that at this point we just have to go off of that. And so we had Joe, we had Ben Hull, and we had Phil.
That's right. It was Ben Hull.
They're all tied, 38 outs on the year. They all caught 37 balls. They all assisted one out. So most likely they either threw somebody out at second or third. Um, it's all really close. I had Phil on my team. He didn't drop many balls. He did have a couple. Um, I didn't get a chance to watch Joe or Ben Hull as much just because I was always playing, but um, I like any of those three. Obviously, I'd like to see Phil win it because he was my teammate, but you can't go wrong with any of those three. I also think Brayson deserves some credit. He was 32, I believe, so he had six less outs than the leaders. But just watching him, especially that first week in playoffs, and I know I said
Playoffs don't
playoffs
matter.
don't matter, but if he was doing all year what he did in that first week of the playoffs, I think Brayson he deserves some strong consideration for it because I saw like probably four or five catches where I mean he had a couple foul balls right on the fence, basically robbing a foul ball, catching it. He had one where he ran up, slid down on his knees, and got the ball really low. It was a lot of fun to watch him. So I think he deserves consideration. Um, my vote for number one, I haven't decided yet. Um, I think it could go to any of those four. I think those four would be my top four picks. I don't think anybody else um, stood out enough to me, but like we said, it's just our opinion. Um, so I would go. I like Brayson as a pick though. He did have a little less production, but the catches he made were insane, and I didn't see the other three making catches like that. Um, but also, like I said, Phil was on my team, kind of with you and Eldno with the MVP. I would like to see my teammates get some of the awards. So um, if it goes to Phil, I would be really happy also. Uh,
We're not going to talk about honorable mentions for outfields. Everyone did good. Those are just the people that have the best stats. For me, Joe's always been solid. And now looking at it over, then if Joe's going to be a qualifier for outfielder of the year, then that for sure boosts his status in the MVP. But we won't talk about that. We passed that. Uh, Joe, Ben, and Brayson will probably be the order that I would vote in if I had a chance to vote. But I played so bad this year, there's no way they give me that chance. So next up, we're going to talk about infielders. Now, Garrison's clearly going to have a biased opinion on this, but that's okay. that's okay. We have our usuals every year. Connor does really good every year. I don't remember how many outs he put out, but I remember he was towards the top.
62.
62 outs, which is a lot, which we played 14 games.
Yeah, I don't remember what that averages out to, but I know mine was higher. I'm just kidding.
I think it's 4 outs a game.
No, his average per game was higher.
More than that, 5, 6. No, it's 5. It's about 5 a game. Anyways, we'll do the calculations right now. But Connor's up there. Clearly, Garrison's up there. But I'll talk about him so he doesn't have to talk about himself. he was on track to do, I think, about as good as Connor, but he went on
Better.
vacation better, but then he went on vacation. So what can you do on the vacation? But it looks like Connor got about 4.4 outs a game, which is a lot, especially for an infielder. And for sure, me, I don't like hitting to him. But having said that, a lot of the infielders that I noticed pick up a lot, and I would vote someone on my team to be an infielder of the year, but it took them a while to get adjusted. But once they got adjusted, they really picked it up. So for me, then the three I would put in no particular order would be Connor, Garrison, and Garrett. Garrett, I watched him play. He played a lot better than he usually does, and he really picked it up. Um, yeah, those would probably be my top. I have heard a lot of good things about a lot of the other infielders, like Darren Johnson. I heard he's been killing it, but I haven't seen him play like very well. My team's played him twice, but I haven't really noticed him snagging balls that shouldn't be snagged or making beautiful plays that I have seen from these other players. So those are my picks.
All right. Well, I guess Jonah doesn't want me to talk about myself, but so like Jonah mentioned, or I mentioned, Connor had the 62 contributed 2 outs this year. That could mean he threw the ball to first base or second base to get him out, or he got the out himself. So he had 62. Um, I had 58. There's a few different ways you can look at this. You can go based off of just straight up the stats. Everybody's going to have their own opinion or their own way of looking at who deserves it. Um, so Connor had 62. I had 58. I think Darren Johnson was up there. He was the third. Jacob Carlson. Um, actually, speaking of Jacob Carlson, if there was a most improved award like we have in basketball, I think that Jacob Carlson would be my vote for that, especially on the defensive side. And like we talked about in the article, he did struggle for a few years when he got pulled up. He was really good in the B League and he kind of just got thrown in there. I think he stepped up a lot this year. So he would be my vote for most improved if they had one. Um, I think my top three infielders are going to be Connor, myself, and I think I would throw Danny in there. Garrett also played awesome. He he really revived his career this year, batting wise and fielding wise. But like I said, there are a few different ways you can look at the infielder of the year award. You can go based off of straight up, um, you know, who got the most outs. That would be Connor. Um, you could look at who would have got the most outs if he didn't have to miss a week.
That's 2 games, by the way. A week you play 2 games or whatever.
um, you could look at the percentages of outs that you contributed to, base or the percentage of your team's outs. Um, that also would go to me. But like I said, I'm biased. If Connor gets it, I would be happy for him. Um, the problem that I see the most with the defensive awards, this goes for outfielder and infielder of the year, is that at this point, everybody has it in their minds. The stats are going to be wrong. They're not going to look at the stats. Um, and it turns into a popularity contest. Connor's been so good for so long, and I don't think he doesn't deserve it this year. Don't get me wrong on that, but um, like so the same example for John England. He was so good for so long in the outfield, and I noticed I even found myself doing it where he was just the popular pick, so that's who I voted. And so now I've decided to go based off of stats, and you can um, feel however you want about that, whether you like them or not, if you think they're right or wrong or whatever. But I think going off stats is the best way that we can vote. but I do think that we need to somehow keep track of how many opportunities you were given base or versus how many you actually converted on because somebody could have had 100 opportunities. Like if I had 100 opportunities this year and I got 58, like that's pretty bad. That means I missed 40% of the balls that got hit to me.
Yep.
So I do think that if we got that, it would make the infielder and outfielder of the year voting's a lot easier to narrow down. But like I said, it's just an opinion. I'm not gonna rank my infielders, but I think the people who should be up there, Connor, me, Garrett, Danny, I don't know, everybody played really good this year. Those would be my picks.
No, no offense to Danny. I was out of town when we played you guys, and the scheduling didn't allow us to play, so I didn't really get to see it infield. So sorry.
Yeah, I didn't really notice a lot of like real good plays by infielders this year. Like I remember back in the day then like Connor was making some crazy plays. And maybe it's just because I we only play each team twice, so they didn't have the chance to do crazy plays against my team. But I did notice that um I I didn't see very many like crazy plays by infielders or outfielders.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just what happens. I did see a lot of good plays in the playoffs, but too bad these aren't playoffs awards. These are regular season. So, uh, yeah, I mean, if this was playoffs, I'd be an all-star. So, but let's do some shout outs to some people. Shout out to Ashton. You did really good, especially in the playoffs. And it took you four games to get used to it, but once you did, you killed it, and you'll probably be an infielder now for the rest of your life. So, good job. Um, Brayson, you did really good in the playoffs. You'll probably be an outfielder as long as you don't throw your arm out. And I think that covers everything that we were going to go over for today.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Uh let us know what you guys think. If you have different opinions, I would love to hear them. I know that a lot of it can get pretty controversial, so if you got anything you want me to listen to, and maybe you can change my opinion, we'll see. But also, if there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know. You can put it in the comments or let me know personally. Um, but yeah, I think that's everything we have. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
One more disclaimer. Uh, Garrison talked about it at the beginning. I got to say, because my opinion, if someone gets mad at me, this is strictly a sports podcast. It's strictly our opinions. Uh, we look at facts and just how this is just what we think. So don't get your feelings hurt. Don't be thinking we don't like you. We look at stats, we talk about it. It's just our experiences. So again, everyone that was nominated for these awards deserve it, and we're just giving our opinions. Thank you.